a better potential definition of politics. And politics is really about who gets to make the rules for whose benefit. So politics exists everywhere. So it exists at the macro level, right? And we'll talk about that. We're going to deconstruct the structure and what's going on. We've been doing that in the class. And then there's micro level politics, what happens in small groups or even between two people. Right? So politics happens all the time, it's happening out. So it's really interesting to me when people say things, oh, I hate politics. Really? Politics happens everywhere. And it happens everywhere, at all times. And when people don't participate in politics, then, or they think they're not participating in politics, say at the macro level, then what they're doing is they are just abdicating their rights and responsibilities to somebody else. And so what happens when you don't participate in the decision making that impacts your life?
You get stuck with something you didn't want.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So people are going to make decisions according to their interest, right? So hopefully they are kind and generous and considerate, but if they're not, then there's a strong possibility that those people who are not participating, those people who are excluded, are going to be, from a conflict perspective, screwed. Right? They will not get the resources, the power, etc., directed towards their own interest. I know that's not a sociological term, but I think it explains politics really well. Okay, so let's go through the different kinds of power and the different terms. So authority is a legitimate power. And then illegitimate power is coercion. So, for instance, a police officer, if he tells you, you see the guy in the uniform with the badge, and he says, you're walking on campus, and he says, come here. Are you going to go? Yeah. I would advise you to go. Yes, right? If he gives you a ticket, and then you have to pay $200, does he have the legitimate right? Does he have the power to give you that ticket to make you pay that $200? Yep. Probably so. Illegitimate power is coercion. So people can make you do things, but they're not considered legitimate. So for instance, somebody can pull a gun on any of us and say, give me all your money in your wallet. Does he have the legitimate right to do that? No. But is he going to get the money?
Yep.
Yes. I would recommend you turn over the money. It's not worth your life. Okay, so just to distinguish those two, and we'll come back and talk about those a little bit more. One of the things about violence, legitimate violence, is that the state is the only entity that has the legitimate right to use violence. I'm not talking about the state of California, I'm talking about the government. Right? So we can kill people in the name of the government. But we don't have the right to do it as individuals. Right? Policemen can use force, deadly force, and they're doing it in the name of the state. Now they can't just sort of randomly they feel like it. They're constrained by rules. But they are considered authorities, and they have the legitimate right to use violence. Okay, so for instance, if we have one of the campus police walk in and he has a gun, we're going to be cool, right? We're going to be like, okay, well, that's cool. It's, the threat of violence. If somebody else walks in with the gun right here, I'm going to get really nervous. I don't know about you guys. I know we have the right to bear arms, but I really don't want to see anybody else carrying a gun. It's going to be really, really nervous, right? Start shaking or something. I had a hand.
Yeah, what about if someone breaks into your property?
Yeah, you do have the right to defend yourself. Yeah, so in that context, you have maybe the legitimate right to use violence to protect yourself. Now, if he's fleeing out the window, you can't shoot at him, right? You can't. No, you'd like to, but no, you can't, right? So there's some constraints. Okay, governments have exclusive rights to violence. When there is a collapse of authority, when the government is no longer seen as legitimate, then that's when we see revolution. Right? So when it's not seen as legitimate anymore, they shouldn't have the right to use violence, or at least they shouldn't be the only ones to have the right to use violence. Other people take up arms, and then they will try to overturn the existing government. That's the definition of revolution. And I'll just digress for a second and say, you guys, I'll just tell you, that was one of my areas for a while. I was really interested in revolution because there's all sorts of inequality and injustices and that kind of thing. So it's really interesting to see when people develop this consciousness and then they collectively organize to engage in a revolution. And one of the things that I didn't come to this brilliant epiphany myself. It was actually a brilliant historian that actually participated in a revolution in Central America. And one of the things that he said was that with revolutions, what often happens is that all sorts of blood is shed, and then a new system is put into place with new people, and things don't necessarily change because the new people in the positions can engage in the very same behavior, even though maybe they were very idealistic. And so, for instance, the Nicaraguan Revolution. I was really interested in Nicaragua. There's so many revolutions I was interested in. And the Sandinistas were a revolutionary group that they took over. They took over the government. They were very idealistic. They wanted to provide universal education, universal health care, redistribute resources, etc. Great ideology. And one of the leaders, a guy named Daniel Ortega, was just very, very idealistic, high character person. You know, I had a lot of admiration for him. He became the president later on. And then I was really disappointed to find out, years later, disappointed to find out he was involved in some corruption stuff. Like, what? Not this guy. This guy was like, he had the most idealistic rhetoric. He was doing great things for the people. And then he turned around and, you know, the accusation was that he gave special favors to certain key people, family members and people that were close to him. And that will speak to one of the theories about the power elite, or about power. But those people who are in positions of power tend to make decisions to benefit themselves and those people around them. And so I'm sure that doesn't always happen. We do know situations where individuals are idealistic and are able to live up to that high character, Gandhi. Okay. So we do know those kinds of situations, but or individuals. But the argument is that we have these kinds of tendencies towards engaging in these behaviors. And I see it actually at the local level. Right? I see it happen. And because you want to do favors for people that you like. Right? Don't you want to do favors for people that you like?
Yeah.
Anybody?
Yeah.
Yeah? All right. Some more authority. Traditional authority is authority based on tradition, so that would be like royalty. So the king is on the throne because God put him there, and then his eldest son is going to be the future king because that's just the tradition. So things are done. Then the next